We are still at Learning Conversations in Heidelberg, again with Helen.
Hello again.
Hello, Helen. What is your role on this? No, it doesn't. What is your role on Learning Conversations?
I think I have more than one. I'm here as a organisational transactional analyst. That's probably my primary role. This is an international event, so I'm here as a citizen from Scotland. I'm here as a woman, which is a private role. I'm here as a friend of some people here, which is another private role. I'm talking with Bernd's role model here. I'm here as a colleague, as a peer. And I'm here with curiosity.
And I'm curious what means a network, a community, and stuff like that to you, because I heard something here should be the starting point of some new community, of some new idea of community.
Yeah, a new idea of community probably. I see that we already are a community because we are transactional analysts and we have a shared frame of reference. The new part of it, perhaps, is the way we're coming together. So it's much less about formal structure and much more about emergent structure and possibilities rather than a fixed direction or a fixed outcome. So it's a new shape of an emerging community, perhaps.
Emerging community means openness, means
yes.
You have you have trust that something works. You don't know what will be the
yes.
output.
Yes, it reminds me that there's a theorist, Peter Senge, whose work I really like, and he talks about the future emerging in the present. So rather than having a linear idea of past, present, future, this for me is about the future emerging in how we are together right now.
I remember Peter Senge was a fifth discipline,
yes.
And he has written a lot about companies and how companies could learn, learning communities, learning organizations. What means this to you?
What it means to me is a way of thinking about change and how change happens. So one of the most famous theories that he's associated with is Theory U, which has become really popular amongst organisational consultants lately. And the way I think about Theory U as a transactional analyst is that it focuses very much on creating the conditions for people to talk about what exists for them and how it's significant. And most of the energy is invested at this level, which is really about meaning. And then any solutions or change possibilities that emerge can emerge suddenly, quickly and unpredictably. So it's a different way of being.
Yeah, and it's a way of being with the right culture. Or
yeah, it's a different paradigm about change. The traditional paradigm of change is that you set a goal, you design a path, you have milestones and a strategy and a plan and all of this, and then you follow it. However, in reality, stuff happens. You know, we don't know what's going to happen. So as a transactional analyst, what I have noticed is that people have a need for structure. It's a fundamental human need for structure. But within Senge's way of thinking, it's how you co-create structure is not through thinking about a linear direction. It's about how you organize the way you are already present together.
Is that really structure or is that culture? You are leaving the process line, you are leaving the goal line.
I think that's a great question, because I think how people understand structure is a product or is a consequence of culture. So part of the dialogue here, we have a structure, we obviously have to have some way of organising ourselves, but as we progress through the 2 days, the group itself will decide what is the most meaningful way of being together. And that's what's exciting.
You know, I'm in media and I love media, and all the time I believe media is a reason for this change. You have the opportunity to talk to whoever you want via the internet, to Asia, to India. Do you have any sense or like any thoughts how media could be used to transfer this culture? And maybe second question on this, what's the change media can bring to this culture?
I'm not an expert in using media. I can talk about my experience of it. My experience of it is that when you have people in a room together, and then you have people who are participating via the internet and remote media, it invites a completely different dynamic. So the questions for me, if I'm a practitioner working with people participating in different ways, the questions for me are: how do we contract? How can I as a practitioner facilitate a sense of equal presence for everybody that's in the room? How do I work with the group as a whole to manage issues of protection, safety, confidentiality perhaps? If a group, there's something about people being physically present together in a room that creates a very specific kind of energy. And my experience has been that sometimes people on screens on the wall are not included, they're excluded. So there's something about how do you manage that?
I'd like to like break in on what's the right. I'd like to make a point at this because we are trying to involve people from outside via the internet.
Yes.
And we make this experiment here with the Titan pad and with Twitter and streaming, maybe.
I'm new to this, I must confess.
So how can we do this in a way that the people feel present? Or
I think we have to ask them. I think it introduces a whole different feeling to how you start an event in which people are participating that way. So that the meaning, what does it mean for them to be present virtually? What does it mean to us who are in the room to have colleagues who are present virtually? How do we work together to ensure involvement, inclusion, presence, spontaneity, intimacy, all those things?
How do you work? Do you work with Skype sometimes?
I have worked with Skype. I've done it on a one-to-one. So obviously that's a conversation we have as part of our contract. And I have worked with groups where I've had people on VC, video conference. And it's taken quite a bit of work at the beginning to ensure. And sometimes that's because of how the room's set up. So I've had ridiculous situations where the camera's there, the screen's there, and the room's organised, so the group's behind me. It's crazy. And it does generate some difficulties. So I've found being really straightforward and honest about the challenges is useful as well. It gives people a space to just say what their experience is.
And how you felt in this situation?
I felt compromised, actually, I'll be honest. So one of the things I've learned is when I'm working with people on video conferences to really insist on how the room is set up. So that there's maximum possibility to include people. And if I'm doing a piece of an event that's more about education, I have people solely on video conference. I don't have people participating in the room. So my attention is entirely on the people participating remotely. Because one of the critiques of mixed has been that the attention of the facilitators is always drawn to the people in the room.
Okay.
So I learned that from actually asking the video conference participants what it was they wanted and what their critique was. And I learned a lot from that.
So your recommendation would be we should include the people outside more and ask them what they want?
Yes, and how does it feel, and what's, at a psychological level, what are the risks for them of participating virtually? You know, what are the advantages, what are the risks, what are their fears, what might make this not a good experience for them? And also their perspective on our experience. How do they imagine it might be for us to have colleagues and peers working virtually, and see what some of the thoughts and fantasies and imaginings are. So it's, in terms of co-creating something, it's full of possibility. I think it's easy to rush. It's easy to rush into what we think the job is and ignore some of the complexity of having a group that's like that. I'm saying this from experience because I've made all the mistakes in the book. I've not done very much, but it has been a big stretch, I have to say.
I think it's just the right thing to do at the moment, because we are just experimenting and we need this input, and maybe we can transfer this also via video outside, so that people know I'm not the only one who has problems with this, who failed.
Absolutely. And I think that's another point, is having people who are really good with the technology. So if ever, I've not done much of, I keep saying this, I've obviously have some nervousness about it, I think. But the times I have done it, I've made sure that there's someone really competent to manage the technology, because when issues arise and problems arise, the participants feel cut off straight away. And the group in the room carries on working, and the participants who are remote lose out. So there's something about protection for the facilitator having a competent person in the room doing the technology.
So one point seems to be protection, but what has to be done that you would participate something like that? No, what has to be done to participate on something like learning conversations online? You are here, you have good reasons to be here.
It has to mean something. That's the thing. I think people will participate if it means something to them. So to me, that's the learning conversation. If anybody joins us here, there's a conversation to be had with them, a bit like this one, to find out from them, you know, what drew them, what they want, what the experience is like, how they imagine it would work best for them, and engage them in a learning conversation about that experience. And I imagine that community of people who want to learn that way will build slowly each time we do this.
So I know you're a musician, and you know how to end art and very good like concerts. I'd like to end today with a question. What is the wish? What is your wish to this conference, or maybe to the follow-up of this conference?
For this conference, I really wish that we build relationships in our community. We feel confident to express ourselves, to be who we are, to talk about questions that mean something to us and that can make a difference, both to our practices, our individual practices, but to how we are together as a community. And for me, there's something about leading from within. So rather than having somebody at the front who's waving a flag for systemic TA, it's through how we are as systemic practitioners that leads the way. So how people experience us together and in our individual roles is the future for me.
So thank you very much, Helen. It was really great.